Welcome, everybody, to It Tastes Different Gaming News. What's in the news today? Xbox confirms Game Pass impacts long-term game sales. In an article, it is confirmed that Microsoft, Xbox confirmed that its launch of the Xbox Game Pass subscription has had a notable effect on the long-term sales of titles. The admission comes as part of a report by the UK Competition and Markets Authority, which was commissioned as part of Microsoft's proposed purchase of publisher Activision Blizzard. According to the report, there were many titles that were affected by the Game Pass subscription in a 12-month period. The average percentage by which sales have declined was redacted from the record. So now this all comes as a kind of a slap in the face to Phil Spencer when he stated that when you put a game like Forza 4 on Game Pass, you instantly have more players of the game, which is actually leading to more sales of the game. Phil Spencer said back in 2018. Yeah, I don't see that, and that doesn't really make a lot of sense in a way, because why would you pay $60 for that game when you pay $60 for a year and play many of those games? So this group loves Game Pass. So let's jump to Nick, because I believe he was the first really to dive into Game Pass at the beginning. I just followed along because I believe in peer pressure. So, Nick, what do you think about this report? Do you see this as really a negative on the game sales?
It's, I don't know, because yes, I do. As far as like game sales go, it makes sense that if you're going to put your game out on Game Pass, that the game sales would be lower. But we have talked about before, right? And we don't know all the specifics of it, but we have talked about before how Microsoft does pay these individual developers, not necessarily, or the publishers, not mainly necessarily the developers in this case, but the publishers, to put games on certain games, right? Maybe not all, but certain games, to put them on there. So I think that would make up for the lack of sales. And that makes sense, right? Because if I don't think a lot of publishers would just throw their game onto Xbox Game Pass without some sort of, because they know that, they do market forecasts and things like that. They know that, their game's not going to sell as well if they were just to put it strictly on Game Pass and hope that they get sales for the game, right, off of Game Pass. So they need some sort of kickback, and I would think Microsoft provides that. But on the flip side, I don't know if that really it doesn't seem to make that big of a difference to publishers or developers, because they continue to put their games on there. So even if that were the case, they are making it up in some regard, right? Like I said, either Microsoft is paying them something up front that's enough to cover that, or they're getting some sort of benefit from it and putting it out on Game Pass. It could be more like, besides the kickback, they could be getting more benefits like word of mouth, and things like that, or other people talking about, that particular game, or, that game getting more of a highlight, right? Getting more of the spotlight, because certain games, I know we've been there, where certain games just were like, I didn't even think about buying it in the first place, but as soon as it's on Game Pass, let's try it out, and it ended up being a cool game, right? And so then you start telling your friends, and your friends are like, okay, cool. Maybe I don't have Game Pass, but maybe I'll pick it up and buy it because, my friend said that was a really cool game, and so maybe I'll check it out. I have it on PlayStation or something like that, right? Or PC or something. So you could get more sales in that way. But I agree. I mean, I think we all knew that it more than likely lessened the amount of sales that games get that goes straight to Game Pass, because it is an easier option and a cheaper option for consumers. Now, in this day and age, things besides video games are really expensive. So, the sales for games are going to be, I would think now, a little bit lower than they used to be. And so, with these publishers and developers would they expect the same game sales today for certain titles that go to Game Pass compared to, if they didn't in today's world, right? I'm talking about right now. Back in 2018, it wasn't as bad, right? Eggs were not $6 a carton, so and among other things. So, it may have been a little bit easier for it back in the day. And I don't know. I mean, regardless as far as what Phil Spencer is saying, Phil Spencer's not really, he is the head of Xbox, but he's not making all the decisions. He's also head of Xbox, but also kind of a spokesman as well. So he's going to prop it up. He's not going to say, well, yeah, it's, this thing sucks for developers, but it's great for you. Of course he's going to try to spin it to make it sound good. But, but again, that might, it could constitute more sales as far as DLC though, right? Having those games on Game Pass where players feel like, well, I didn't have to buy the game, even though you are paying a subscription. I'll go ahead and buy that DLC for it or these other things because they didn't have to spend $60 or $70 off the bat for it. Right. That might give them more inclination to buy DLC. So I think there's a give and take. There's a teeter-totter type of effect there, I think. And what's happening with the sales as far as the different avenues in which the publisher and developers are getting the money. What do you think, Pat?
Yeah, no shit is what I would say. I mean, it's going to affect game sales because if you were going to buy the game and you subscribe to Game Pass, guess what? You're not going to buy the game now because guess what? You get to play it for free. As a person who doesn't play a lot of DLCs, they don't make a whole lot of money off of me with that aspect. But I do pay for 2 Game Pass subscriptions, one for myself and one for my kid, and we stay subscribed all year long. So they're making pretty good. They're making money off of me in that instance. But to the point of like, I have the 15. So they're making $180 off me and $180 off of what I have for my kid. So they're making money, which I think, I don't know, what does that equate to? 5 games a year or something like that, which I play a lot more than 5 games a year. So it's, especially on Game Pass. So it's a money saving thing for me. But I'm not going to play I don't do DLCs. So I guess I shouldn't say that because I have, but for the most part, I don't participate in DLCs unless I just really, really love the game. But I don't know what else to say besides whoever. I think that maybe they're misconstruing what Phil Spencer was saying is because when I reread the quote, I'm like, he's saying that you're going to have more players playing the game is kind of what it sounds like. But whatever, he misspoke or whatever he said, or he just lying out of his ass to get, prop it up like you said, whatever. Anybody who thought that Game Pass wasn't going to eat into overall sales numbers of a particular game, you're huffing your own brand is all I got to say, because that just makes no sense to me that you would think that. But, the question I would want to have is, do developers make more money in the long run? That's what I want to know is like, does Game Pass help you make more money or recoup money, in the long run? Because if your game doesn't come to Game Pass day one, you can still come to Game Pass. And there's this information we don't know, like how much money does that person or that developer or a publishing studio get to bring their game to Game Pass? Maybe their game, maybe they're like a lot of developers up there, and they think I've got the best game since sliced bread, and it's just going to be this sneaker title that just rakes in hundreds of millions of dollars, and it doesn't even do tens of millions of dollars, So now you have a redeemable option by going to Microsoft and being like, hey, we put this on Game Pass. Can you give me some money for it? And I don't know if they pay per play or like blocks of pay, like tier 1. If you get this many downloads, we'll pay you this much. And tier 2, if you get this much downloads, we'll pay you that. And the only way it's really bad for the developer is if they are hitting the top of a tier, right? Like if a tier is 1 million downloads, up to 1 million downloads, and you only got 200,000, but you got the same amount of money regardless of 1 to 1 million, then you're making bank, right? But if you got like 999,000 $950, you're probably on the losing end of that deal. Like I said, I don't know what the deals look like. Only the people at Microsoft and familiar with that do, but anybody could see the writing on the wall that you're not going to have as much game sales if your game is on Game Pass, especially day one, and you have a fan base who wants to play it. Me, if I'm on the fence about a game, I'm waiting for it to go on sale anyway, so I'm not playing it day one. And I'll be perfectly honest, we review a lot of games, and there are games that would never be day one purchases for me. They'd be sale price purchases for me. So, and then when they come to Game Pass, it's just a bonus for me. I'm like, cha-ching, I don't got to pay $70 for a game or $60 for a game. And for those people who pay just the $10 because they don't have like PC or something, so they don't need Ultimate, at this day and age, once you played 2 games on Game Pass that are day one games that were $70 games, you've more than paid for Game Pass, because a Game Pass $120 a year versus the $140 you would have spent on 2 games, and that's not even including the tax you would have paid on that. So in this day and age, Game Pass is still a good thing for the consumer. Will that last? Time will tell. I think with the increase of games to $70, I think we're looking at a realistic increase in Game Pass in the next year or two, from my opinion, especially when they decide to roll out the family plan. I think they're going to increase prices across the board. That might be something that they start testing out there. But as long as they keep it somewhat similar to what we're hearing with 5 people on a Game Pass plan, and it's not that to increase price. I mean, right now, I don't know what the price would be per year or per month before I decide to bow out of Game Pass. Would that be $20, $25, $30? I don't know where that is at yet. I'm not forced with that dilemma yet. So I would pass that question on to you guys, and I'm going to pass it back to Shane to say, what do you think, Shane? And is there a price that you would decide that you're going to bow out of Game Pass?
Yes. There is a price, but I don't know what it is yet, because it's kind of the way the world is going kind of thing. So as we know, games have gone up to $70. Microsoft is even following suit with the $70 game pricing, which is a load of horse crap. In my personal opinion, I'm pretty sure that follows suit to you guys as well, considering everything is digital now. So it's not like they're pushing out, discs and boxes and all that crap. They're saving money. And this group, especially, unless it's a cool steel case or really just a badass collector's edition, or you're Nick and you have to have 2 of everything. This group doesn't do, yeah, you're not wrong there. This group doesn't do physical too often on Xbox because of Game Pass, because of Game Share, and because we play most everything on Game Pass. Now, behind me, I have a ton more PlayStation games on disc because I'll trade their stuff in, because I don't buy PlayStation games that often, because I only play their exclusives. So, digital is great, and Game Pass is really pushing the digital trend. So I don't know if I have a limit yet, but I know there is one. I just got to see where the world takes us. Family game plan. Oh, they better do that. Get that crap rolling soon, because I really want that. This whole crew wants that. I mean, we all have kids. We all provide Game Pass for our kids. They're getting a crap ton of money off of all of us. So give me some family plan. But as far as the long-term sales, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, do you subscribe to 2 Game Pass subscriptions yourself plus your kids?
Yep.
Or do you, Nick, do you do the same? Do you have one for you and your kids? Do you have one that's for you and both your kids, and then both your kids, or do you just have one for you and then they share their own Game Pass?
Briar, my daughter, doesn't have one because she doesn't really play much games on the Xbox.
So are you doing Ultimate or just regular Game Pass for them?
I do Ultimate for Mason, not because of because you
all
get
the stuff.
Yeah, you get stuff. EA Play and stuff like that with it too.
Do you have Ultimate for yourself?
Yes, of course.
Shane, do you have Ultimate for yourself or just a $10? Yep. Do you have Ultimate for your
Both.
kids?
Yep, for us and
So that
me and the kids.
they're getting $60 out of, or they're getting $30 out of each of us for Game Pass on a normal subscription without lapsing. So,
yeah, I mean, so we obviously know $30 isn't our limit. So,
I may think twice about spending $30 on both each. So I'd probably look at if it was $60 for both. I'd be like, Daddy's getting Game Pass and you're not. I'm sorry, kiddo.
Yeah, you can go live with your mom if you don't like it. No, kidding. Mostly, Game Pass. This is the hard story because we don't know enough of those details of Game Pass. Yes, it will hurt game sales, but if they're making those same amounts, if not more, doing the subscription service, it's that's kind of a crappy title for an article because they're still making their money that they would have made on those sales, possibly if it wasn't for Game Pass. I mean, they're just getting those set money from the sales in another place. That's really all of what it comes down to.
Well, and it's all hypothetical, right? Too,
exactly.
Just like Nick had said, maybe people aren't spending as much in gaming as they were during COVID times, and that's where they're based on. Because the number was redacted from the article, if I recall correctly, wasn't it? They didn't give the exact decrease in number of sales that they saw, but there's no way to tell if it's comparable, right? Because I would say that there's probably a give and a take to this. There are some developers who are probably losing money, and there are probably more. I would probably say there's more developers like unknown or third party or indie developers that are probably making more money than they would have made if they didn't have Game Pass, right? There's probably some of that stuff out there because I remember we're always like, hey, this game came to Game Pass, you should check it out. I'm like, that doesn't look like anything I'll play. And you're like, oh, it turned out to be pretty darn good. But we would have never played it. And because it did get a whole lot of press and we weren't at the top of our list, but it was a free game. I guess I should say free, but it's part of our subscription. So we get that. So it's a tough thing to say that just because numbers of physical sales are down, that's to blame on Game Pass. I don't necessarily believe that. It's hard to, but I will admit, and I'm sure anybody else will admit, that it doesn't help them sometimes, but it does help in other times. So Game Pass is probably a blessing for some smaller, lesser, unknown games that were coming out. And probably for some of these AAA titles, like I have no doubt in my mind that it is probably hurting the sales of Microsoft Studio games. Because if it's a day one and it's a $70 game, I'm not buying it. I'm playing it on Game Pass. So that studio sales get lumped into Game Pass sales at that time.
Yeah, but I would imagine, and again, everything's hypothetical because we just don't have squat for info about the inner workings of Game Pass. But I would imagine that it's probably not as affecting as you think because I mean they are owned by the company. It's a lump of stuff. I mean, yes, Bungie has to, or not Bungie, 343 has to perform. But if they would have got more sales on Halo Infinite from just being a disc, digital only thing, not a Game Pass game, I don't know. How
do you quantify that though? You have to be able to quantify that.
You got to be able to. All right. Well, easy. Well, for a game like Halo is easy. One, you can look at downloads compared to completion. I mean, they have everything at their fingertips. They can say 1 million people downloaded. Out of those 1 million people, 800,000 completed the single player game. Out of that 1 million people, 700,000 are continuous on multiplayer.
Right, but you can't quantify and say like Halo Infinite would have sold X number of copies if it wasn't for Game Pass. Now, if they I would love to see that crystal ball.
You could give it a guesstimate, though. You just compare it to previous entries of the Halo franchise.
I don't think so, because that's a joke, because everybody looks at reviews for that game and are deciding if they want to play it based off of previous. So I think that would be a fallacy on their part to compare it to previous.
Okay, this is a family show, no fallacies.
But my whole thing my whole thing is you have to take Microsoft games as a whole. Like, I don't know how many Microsoft Studio games came out that we play, but let's just take me as an individual and dump my kids playing out. I'm only paying $180 a year, I think is what it boils down to. 15 times 12. $180, which at $60 game is 3 games. Does Microsoft Studios put out more than 3 games a year? Any of them in any combination? That's what I'm saying. That I would want to, or does Microsoft publishing arm, so I'm talking about their development studio and their publishing arm, put out more than 3 games that I would play in a year? The answer is probably yes. So in that aspect, they're losing money because I'm only paying $180, but I'm also getting access to stuff I wouldn't have before. So I would say there is a losing factor somewhere in there for Microsoft because I don't see the numbers evening out for that. What I do probably see is Microsoft probably gets what happens to a lot of people. They subscribe and forget. That's how Microsoft's probably making their money, right? Somebody subscribes to play that game for $10 and then they forget to cancel it. And next thing you know, 6 months has gone by or 7 months has gone by. But you almost have to have somebody subscribe and forget about it for a year to be able to make any money. Because if they got to play a $70 game they would have purchased for $10, that's a loss if they unsubscribe after 3 months, right? Or but you can't really tell. Maybe that person would have never paid $70. You just don't know. So there's a lot of, he said, she said type stuff going on here. Nobody really knows what would have happened in 2022 or in Halo Infinite's case, how Halo Infinite would have been if it was not on Game Pass. How many sales would it have got versus how many downloads it got? Like you need an alternate reality time machine to go, okay, we're going to go to universe A and universe B, and we're going to see what Halo Infinite did in A, where Game Pass wasn't real, versus what it did in B, where Game Pass is real. How many sales, and did Game Pass lose or make money in that scenario?
All right. Nick, will you get working on the time machine, please?
I'll call Doc Brown.
The problem with this is speculation.
It's your kids, Marty.
What every time I hear that, I think of Family Guy.
They're playing video games for only $15 a month, Marty. We have to go back and stop it.
It ruins the entire gaming industry, Marty.
The problem with this is speculation. We don't know enough about the inner workings of Game Pass. Some games come out we love. Some games come out we hate. Some games come out on Game Pass because the excitement for it wasn't there, and they were like, crap, we need to make money on this. So Game Pass is a solid bet. We're going to make something. The Square Enix People Can Fly was the game that they put out. They ended up putting it on Game Pass. Outriders.
Or whatever.
Outriders.
The Outsiders.
So the demo came out, and the demo sucked for most people. But when the game came out, it came out on Game Pass, and I guarantee that increased players. For how long, I can't say, but I would almost guarantee it increased players. Which, if you increase players, you get people excited. Some people didn't have Game Pass. I think in that situation, it probably could have helped the game developers sell the publishers sell those games. I can't guarantee it. I'm not in time zone B where Pat wants to be, but I'm in time zone A where I can guesstimate, and I can use just, if I was playing something and Nick came and said, hey, this game is awesome, you should check it out, and I don't have Game Pass, most likely I'll just get Game Pass for the month. But I know that's a game that Nick says is good, I'm most likely going to like, so I can see how it could increase sales, but I can also see how it can hurt sales. And I'm talking actual sales, not downloads, not Game Pass playing. So it's one of those things where, you can say this, but you're not really giving all the information. And then that's just making Microsoft look bad. And right now, I think there's a lot of BS going on trying to hurt Microsoft just to prevent them from buying Activision Blizzard, which is how all this came about.
I think Activision Blizzard doing that themselves.
Well, yeah. I mean, look at the douche nozzle they got running the place over there. But if we ever get actual information on how Game Pass truly works, then we can go back to the story and say, yep, they were right. Or we can go to World Bingo. Nope, they were so full of crap. But we'll never know, I bet. I don't think we'll ever get the deets on Game Pass and, how it all operates.
We'll never know how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop.
37. I got bored. All right. You guys got anything else to say? All right. Before we finish this lollipop, make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit those notifications. And most important, give us feedback. What do you think about this story? What do you think about Microsoft and Game Pass as a whole? Do you think it helps? Do you think it hurts? What are your thoughts? Do you think this whole EA Activision thing is just a bunch of loaded crap and they should just be able to buy it or not? Let us know in those comments. And if you have questions or anything you would like to know, put that in there too. But until next time, see ya.